It's Chris Facey, your friendly neighborhood photographer, based out in Raleigh, North Carolina, by way of Brooklyn, New York. And this is Light Talks with Titus Brooks Heagins. Now, when we have the camera, we can tell our stories the most honest and accurate ways possible. We never really want somebody to dictate who we are or, make up their own assumptions of who we are. So I try to capture that and I make myself feel familiar to them. Definitely a difference. There's a big difference, at least for me. I've seen people cry from receiving prints, but if you're angry, you're not going to be able to do what you're trying to do with this camera. Photography changed a lot of things for me. It changed a lot of things for me.
I'm Titus Brooks Heagins. I'm here at the Light Factory Photo Art Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm sitting here with Chris Facey, who is a photographer not only from New York, but from Brooklyn, New York. So he gets some props for the cut. We have a lot of admiration for some of the same guys who are very historic and very important black photographers. So Chris, tell me a little bit how you got started in photography.
Well, I started photography when I was still serving in the United States Army. I needed some type of creative outlet that would still allow me to be a full-time soldier and still create, since I've always been a creative. So I just picked up the camera thinking I would just take some photos, a couple of photos for the soldiers, their families. Once I researched some black photographers on a random day, I was just like amazed by what I saw. I'm seeing works by Gordon Parks and Carrie Mae Weems and Word-Day Carava, Eli Reed, the list goes on. And I'm just like, whatever this is that I'm feeling from these photos, I want to be able to create that. So that made like a whole shift, and that's just what it's been since about 2015, 2016.
So when I look at your work, it reminds me a lot of my work. I mean, it's different, but it's very reminiscent. I see your images. I see a very similar, if not exactly the same motive for doing photography. And I know I do my work because I grew up in a small African-American community, and I want to pay homage to people that I grew up with, people that I learned about life from. And I mean, why do you do this work? Why do you do the street photography, the portraiture? What drives you?
Being able to tell the honest stories of black people. For a long time we didn't really own our image. Other people have used our image to dictate who we are. They've used it for nefarious means. And now when we have the camera, we can tell our stories the most honest and accurate ways possible. And there's so much to black life that it's not just these stereotypical in the hood shots or these broken families and all of these things that they like to uncover with photos. I just wanted to make sure they got an honest understanding of who we are.
That's one of the things that I've always pulled from your images when I've seen them, is you have a way of going to what I think is the core, the essence of the beauty of people with dark skin.
I know that I'm black, and I know what type of experience that we live, and I would assume that some others kind of have a variation of. And I know in that we never really want somebody to dictate who we are or, make up their own assumptions of who we are. So I try to leave the floor open to have these conversations with other people, especially the people that are collaborating with me in these images, to let them know that I see you. You're not just viewing. And they like that. They kind of go to that. Like, yeah, thank you for taking the time to talk with me. Those photos that you may see, it happened maybe about the quickest of a second, but the conversations I've had with these individuals leading up to that and the importance of how they want to be seen and why they think it's important, I try to capture that, and I make myself feel familiar to them, and they realize that I am familiar to them because we have like a similar upbringing.
It sounds to me like your motive force is to tell the truth, is to create a visual truth from what you understand about someone's experience that you just met. How do you tie into something so deeply and so successfully that it comes through in your images? Not only in that it tells a story about that person, but I see a connection with your images with so many different people. So it doesn't just stop with that person. It goes through a community. How do you do that?
Just being able to speak to people and letting them have the floor to talk about their life experience. And when you realize that we're not so different, it builds this connection. It allows me this type of access into their life, even if it's just for a few minutes. And if they're honest about it and I'm honest about my interaction with them, the image comes out honest. So I think that's how that gets across.
Do you have a favorite image of yours that continually inspires you. So an image that you created, I know what I think is your favorite image of mine, but I want to know what's your particular favorite image that you created.
I feel like I haven't made that quintessential photo yet. The ones that when you talk about Gordon Parks and the others that came before me, I don't know if I have that yet. I don't know if I got it yet. So I'm still every day striving to try to make that. And if it comes, it comes. Hopefully it comes soon, because I'm not trying to wait till I'm 70, 80.
So when I picked you up from the train station today, you got off, you walked out of the building, you had 2 cameras hanging around your neck. And I was thinking, I was like, okay, so that's Chris, obviously. You know, we hadn't met. What kind of guy actually walks on a train and everywhere throughout his life, always with a camera? Is this always a part of you? Is it a 24-hour thing because you might run across or run into that quintessential and you image? Are you always ready?
Yeah, I try to keep a camera on me, at least one. Even when I'm in the house, I have one like upstairs, one downstairs, one at the desk where I make block prints and stuff, because life is 24/7. Okay. And I photograph life. It can happen at any moment.
So let me ask you this: were you ever a Boy Scout?
For about 2 days.
2 days. Okay. So wait. So then obviously something about that Boy Scout motto, always be prepared. And I forgot exactly what it is because it's been so long for me. Is this part of your inspiration, that you always want to be prepared for just in case?
The name of the game with photography, sometimes you got to be reactive. But I'd much rather have the camera on me and know that I was in a good position to make that image if it came across, my viewfinder. I can do that. I would hate to not have my camera like,
You missed that one.
And I'll think about it. I'll think about it, like when I go fishing and I don't get that fish. It's the same thing with me with photos. I'll go home and I'll just ponder that, like, why didn't I get that? How didn't I? What was wrong? And, I just try to go through that process so that it doesn't happen again. But I know the first step is to keep a camera on me.
Okay, so since you left New York and you're living in North Carolina now, I want to know, is there a difference? And if there is a difference, what is that difference between photographing in New York and photographing in North Carolina?
There's definitely a difference. There's a big difference, at least for me. In New York, when I go outside to make work, I can miss a shot and turn around and there's another shot right there. Being here in North Carolina, you kind of have to be a part of the community. You have to be somebody that they've seen a few times to know that you live here. You're not just a passerby. You're just not dipping in, dipping out. The tools that I use is a little bit different. In New York, I'm kind of using wider lenses, but here I use more intimate lenses because I get a better intimate relationship with the people here because they trust me. They've seen my work, and it just works out better for me that way. I'm not just some guy. I'm Chris, and they know me, and that's the guy with the camera, so I like that.
So what I call that in my work is I talk about relationships. I think it's very important that you have a relationship with those that you photograph for a number of reasons. One, I think that I feel that I need to know as much as I can know about a person to present a visual truth about their life. So the more that I know about them, I think the stronger my image is in telling the story. I think people relax more if they know who you are. They know what you're going to do. They have an idea of what you're going to do with the image, and there's this level of trust that's built up. And I think that's really important, especially in portraiture. Having a relationship with those you photograph, it puts a higher level of where I feel that I have an obligation to them, and it makes me want to be certain that I get it right. I think it makes everything better.
Yeah, I would agree with that because what really stands out to me is when I come back with the print. I've seen people cry from receiving prints. It just enhances that relationship so that you can come to me and I can come to you and we could at least try. And I'm not coming from a place of ill will.
Wow. It's clear to me that you take your practice very seriously.
I do. I mean, photography changed a lot of things for me. It changed a lot of things for me.
So a couple of years ago, I was coming back. I was coming back from Vietnam. I ended up with Chester Heagins, who is in New York, and so Chester has always been one of my favorite people. And the thing that I like about his work is that he seems to have a way of capturing or locating this beautiful quality about African Americans in photography. Mm-hmm. Who are the people that you admire? And who would you say had the most impact on your work?
I'm definitely a fan of Eli Reed's work, Gordon Parks' work. Although he's not black, Eugene Smith. I learned a lot about, storytelling through their work, finding ways to evoke emotion and capture that in a way that you have to feel something. And if I have to choose somebody that's inspired me the most, it would be Gordon Parks, because the more I learned about Gordon Parks, I realized that he put the love of black people in almost everything he did, from photos to his movies to his poetry. He always found a way to come back to those themes that he was touching on. So that's how you know it was something true and honest about how he feels. And it wasn't until, I was doing those things and learned that he did it as well, that, I can do this outside of photography as well. Now I'm making these block prints that I've just started doing, and I'm still touching on these same themes, that it becomes bigger than just the image. It becomes about us as a people. So Gordon Parks definitely gets my my highest honor.
Talking about Gordon Parks, one of my favorites again. Mm-hmm. I really love his image of Ella Watson, the American Gothic. Mm-hmm. I mean, I thought that told the story of the Black American experience. Her standing there with the broom and the mop and the American mm-hmm. flag behind. And I just thought that was, I don't know what else you could say about it. Mm-hmm. But he found a way to say more about it by going in and photographing her in her home. And he worked with her and her family for a pretty mm-hmm. long time. And that's about commitment.
I agree.
So what's the longest you've ever worked with anyone?
There's a family there that I always visit, so much so that he's dubbed me his adoptive son.
Okay.
And I've been there, I've been going there back and forth since October of 2021. And I go there, we sit down, we talk about life, we talk about history, we talk about the revisionist history that's going on against black people, the erasure of our history. He tells me about his time growing up in North Carolina and how, the train tracks and all of these things have been a major part of his upbringing. I just go and sit with him, and he'll let me photograph him. And I photographed him, his wife, and when she passed, I got invited to come to the funeral and to also speak. And I didn't expect to get emotional at the funeral, because I known this lady for maybe about a year and a half or so at that time. But I got emotional about it because in that short amount of time, she welcomed me into her home. She hated pictures. She hated having her picture taken. While she was sick, she asked for me and asked for me to bring this one image that I took of her. And she said it's the only image she loved of herself that I made of her. So I brought that to the hospital to her. And then that same night she passed. And it was just a lot to deal with that. But I don't know if I would have gotten that if I wasn't just this genuine person who was accepted by this man and his family and his home. And I think the commitment is just being genuine. These are not just subjects or whatever you want to. These are people. And ultimately, I want to just chill with good people. And he's just one of those people. He's taught me so much about how to navigate being in the South. Because like I told you earlier, I'm a little bit headstrong about how racism is. Being from New York, I just want to test it and contest it, really. He was like, you got to hold on to that. We know you're angry, but if you're angry, you're not going to be able to do what you're trying to do with this camera. And for him to see that as somebody who's not a photographer, he writes poetry, so he is a creative, but he understands the power of the image. So he's always trying to help me with that. And he's also was the linchpin to get me into the Lane Street Project, which is one of the cemeteries that I'm documenting.
So it sounds like photography for you, it's more than about an image. It's about life. Mm-hmm. And it's an avenue for learning about life and for teaching lessons of life. Agreed. Everybody's got a camera because mm-hmm. everybody's got a cell phone now.
That's right.
And I just wonder if we are forgetting about the power of photography and also the possibilities that the use of photography can bring, because it's so ubiquitous now mm-hmm. in our lives. And there was a time when photographers were rare. It was expensive to buy the equipment. Mm-hmm. You had to have a dark room. You had to have the time. So photography is something that I've always thought is an upper class sort of application because the time that it takes to work on projects, the expenses that it gets, and sometimes you do all of this and there really is no reward. Everyone doesn't make it into the galleries, everyone doesn't make it into the museums, but photographers still created all of these images about how they understood life and what was important to them. But now, since everybody's got a phone, I don't know that we really think about its power right now.
Yes, me, other photographers, we may understand, the power of the image, but for others, it seems to be they don't understand it until it's too late. And what I mean by that is when my grandmother passed in 2019, everybody was hitting me up about having photos of my grandmother because what other ones did we have? All them years of me taking photos when I came back home from the military, it was a bunch of, hey, get the camera out of my face. I'm like, yo, I'm taking these pictures because you're going to need these. I'm telling y'all that you're going to appreciate it later. And then it happened. There was an image to put on a T-shirt for my grandmother. There was these images to share around with the family that we had. I was very grateful to have made those images, and for me, being able to make these portraits of people it's my way of immortalizing them. That's how you stay forever. And then if I can get you in a book, but I don't need a gallery for that, I don't need a museum for that. It will help, but I can make my own book. I think that's the reward you get. If you're looking for like monetary stuff, it may happen, it may not. I don't want to put all my money in on that. But if I can make this connection between me and a different person and bridge that gap to show you how we're more alike than we are different, that's the reward. Because now I might gain a friend, or they might lead me to somebody else that might be a friend, or just show me this whole new world that I didn't know existed. And I think that is the toll that you have to pay with photography to get those. The rewards is just different.
That's good.